video, I'm going to be talking about the different personality types that you encounter in the workplace, how to work with them, what to avoid, and who best to think about when you have a partnership or a conflict resolution issue at work. There is never going to be a day, and I realize this now more than ever as an entrepreneur, that we're not going to have problems. There is never a day that I'm not going to deal with a difficult personality. In fact, there are days that now that it's coming up on 10 years of my being an entrepreneur that I just want to crawl back to corporate and just become a television anchor again and just have my one job as a talking head and not have to worry about sales and billing and all the other things that go with being an entrepreneur. But this morning I woke up and I realized a couple of things. I've changed as a result of that process, as grueling as it was. I'm better than I was when I started. And I've learned something about myself. I've learned something about my ability to plan the work and work the plan and magically look at the end of my day and be like, oh, my to-do list is done. So before I get into my tips today, I want to share this story that I read about Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino, the filmmaker, isn't most proud of the films that he made, Pulp Fiction, all the ones that we know and love today. He's actually proud of this. He started out as a young guy working in a movie rental store, and he would take all the money from his movie rental job and put it towards making a film. And he would start and stop because, as with the ebb and flow of the money. And when he finally finished that first film, it was kind of terrible. And so what Quentin Tarantino says today is that he's not so proud of the big accomplishments in the movies that you know and love today. He's actually proud that at that moment, after making his first terrible film, that he got back up on the horse and started again, at a time when most people would have quit. So for me, as I sit down to look at my to-do list every single day, and it's a long one, I'm just proud that I sit back down and deal with those difficult personalities, and I deal with the challenges that come with every day in being an entrepreneur. All right, let's get into the personality types and what to do. So let's say you're dealing with somebody who is a dominant. Chances are your boss is probably a dominant. They're very much results oriented. They're somebody who likes to look at the big picture, but isn't necessarily mired in wanting to do the execution of the details. They love action. They're focused on the results. You're going to be a little bit hard pressed though sometimes to get some sympathy out of somebody who is a dominant, patience out of a dominant. It doesn't mean that it's not within their grasp, but it takes a little bit of effort. So a few things to keep in mind when you're communicating with somebody who is a dominant personality style. Keep it short. Make sure you stay on topic. Walk in with some bullet points. That's always going to help you. Be prepared for follow-up questions that you're going to probably have to answer right on the spot. So make sure you practice them ahead of time. Expect them to be fairly blunt and expect them to be pretty decisive. Things to avoid when you are dealing with a dominant. Well, number one, don't take their bluntness or their lack of patience or any of their follow-up questions personally. It's who they are. Don't make promises that you can't deliver on. And don't expect them to open up about their weekend plans. Dominants are often really accomplished people. They're excitable. They love a good challenge. So if there's a moonshot project that you're working on or you've been thinking about and it kind of seems impossible, you want a dominant on your team. Today I want to talk about the influencer. Now, you know an influencer because they are the consummate people person. They thrive off of forming relationships, so that makes them ace collaborators. But things you should know about an influencer: they're not great on the follow through and their long-term focus could use a little bit of work. But they really thrive on relationships. They're usually friendly, they're upbeat. Okay, so when you are communicating with an influencer, what do you need to remember? Well, keep it casual. A sense of humor is going to go a long way. When you share any details or facts in a verbal communication, I always make sure I follow up with an email recap with all of the bullet points. This way you have something to refer back to. One other thing to keep in mind with influencers, they can be a little too optimistic about their own abilities and the abilities of others. So things to avoid when you are talking to an influencer, don't talk down to them. Don't be curt. Don't be short with them. The other thing is to really not confine the conversation. It's important to let them be free to be me and express their emotions. You'll notice that an influencer definitely wants to dive into the details with you. So listen, if you are looking to reshape your company culture, get an influencer, because they are going to be a great collaborator if you need to reshape that culture on your team. So today we're talking about the steady. Now, the steady personality thrives on cooperation. They don't want to upset the apple cart. Consistency, stability, loyalty, those are all of their value systems. You traditionally would see a steady in a customer service position, maybe an IT help desk position. Generally, they adapt quickly and they really thrive off of encouragement. So what to keep in mind when you are talking to a steady personality? Well, active listening is going to be important. In fact, you do one better if you were to recap. I like to do this. You recap what I just heard you say. You're summarizing the highlights of the conversation. It's best to approach them in a relaxed way. It's also a great opener when you're talking to a steady is to acknowledge a recent contribution that they've made, but expect them to ask you for details. Things to avoid. Don't rush them into a decision. They don't like it. And you really shouldn't assume that they support your idea just because they weren't particularly vocal about their opposition. It's worth going back another time to make sure that they're really on board. Don't expect them to know your priorities. Don't expect them to know your deadlines. In fact, you should probably spell them out either in writing or again in verbal. Steadies are even-keeled. Again, like I said, they love cooperation. They like that everybody knows their roles and their responsibilities. If you are on a team that's experiencing a bunch of turmoil, you can expect a steady to be a great ally. What happens if you're dealing with somebody who is a conscientious person? This person is the thinker. They're the analyzer. A couple things to know about them. These folks, they thrive on precision. They put a high value on competency. They are going to just jump at the opportunity to show off their expertise and maybe even learn a new skill. You're generally going to find the conscientious person probably in like a data management role, an engineering role, an analyst role. A conscientious person or a conscientious personality type isn't necessarily unfriendly, but you shouldn't expect them to chat you up about your weekend plans. And conversely, they're not going to be the ones to volunteer to organize like a team dinner. What to keep in mind when you're dealing with a conscientious personality type. Number one is that you want to give as many details as possible and be as systematic as possible. This person thrives on systems and processes. Be very clear about your expectations. I personally, when I'm giving a directive to somebody who I know is a conscientious personality type, is that I like to give like a project dossier, if you will. Here's the project. Here's what success looks like. Here's when to bother me. Here's when not to bother me. And finally, here is your deadline. So now they are independent. And I think that a conscientious person appreciates that independence and the ability to be creative within the confines and the bumper guards that I've laid out for them. But you should expect a conscientious person to probably double check, triple check all the facts before they make any kind of decision. All right, things to avoid when you're dealing with a conscientious personality. Don't frame feedback as criticism. There's another word that you can use. Don't react to them emotionally. In other words, I feel is not the best way to deal with a conscientious person. Use words like I know or I think. I like to come at a conscientious personality type with a lot of facts, very fact-based. Instead of you did this behavior doesn't work. This behavior doesn't work. It's best to ease into a conversation with a conscientious personality type with a little bit of chit chat. A little bit of small talk goes a long way with this personality type. Bottom line, a conscientious person, they're cautious. They are big fans of systems and processes. If you are looking to partner with this person, they are probably going to shine if you need them to do like an analysis after the fact, like the post-mortem, as I like to call it, like what went right, what went wrong, what should we do better for next time. I'll Alternatively, you might want a conscientious person to do the pregame. In other words, the due diligence that needs to go into a project before you green light it or say yes. Hey, I want to direct you to my website where I've included 4 downloads on different ways that you can set boundaries, build confidence in public speaking at home, or assert yourself. So all you got to do is go to joyadas.com. You go 3/4 of the way the page down and you can download those. And I would love to hear from you. You can always DM me at info@joyadas.com, or you can DM me down below. As always, please subscribe to my channel. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button, and then you'll get a bell notification every time I upload a new video.